Last time we saw you, you were talking about the sweat pledge, and you were talking about that stupid poster we just showed that we all learned, and you switched it around, and you opened up a fundraising drive to really kind of get that going. How are things?
that you know, just listening to you talk now, it's so true, and I'm sure these guys know it too. That there's such a hunger for advice, right? There's such a hunger to know what the special sauce is, that a lot of good advice winds up becoming these platitudes, bromides. Work smart, not hard was the first one I remember seeing in my guidance counselor's office. So yeah, we changed it to work smart and hard, because the more you think about what's going on in the country, at least I do, I start to think maybe we're a society that actually believes it. Maybe we really took that advice, work smart, not hard. And
yeah, we did.
Right. And so, going back and trying to correct or at least challenge some of the platitudes that are out there today became a real fundamental part of Dirty Jobs and a fundamental part of Mike Rowe Works. And I have to thank you too. Your fans, man.
They're great, aren't they?
Your fans are engaged in a way that really doesn't happen much in TV anymore. People watch, they flick, they watch, they laugh. I think your fans watch like this, they pay attention. And just talking about that poster, thousands of people went to the site, bought the poster, the Work Smart and Hard version, right? And they put it up in their own guidance counselor's office. And they're just starting a conversation.
That's great.
We raised all kinds of money for our work ethic scholarships, which we've been doing now for the last couple of weeks. You signed one of the posters. You told your audience about it. We do these things on our website. I have this little show called CRAP. Stands for Collectibles, Rare, and Precious. And it's stuff that I just auction as kind of a lark from my Dirty Jobs days. We used the poster that you signed and raised $12,100 on a single poster.
And that was crap.
People want to help. People want to be a part of the conversation. And most of all, people, I believe, want to reward the kind of behavior that we're trying to encourage.
People know that they just know the truth. They know the truth. And we have been denying it over and over again. It's like we were talking today about how the New York Times said that it was a misspoken truth. No, it was a lie. It was a lie. I've never said to I have 4 kids. I've never said to any of my kids, excuse me, is that a misspoken truth? I say to him, are you lying to me?
I may have misspoke.
Right, you didn't did you mislead everybody? No, did you lie to everybody? We have to what we do in our own lives with our kids, where we're really down to brass tacks, that's the way we just need to be all the time. But political correctness has erased all of that stuff.
Look, I think that's true. I also think that there's a lot of confusion over causes and symptoms in a really simple way. And not to oversimplify it, but last time we talked about the skills gap, we talked about outsourcing manufacturing, we talked about the high cost of tuition. All these things are these massive problems that people dive down into on a very granular level. But what if they're just really symptoms of a much larger belief structure that says, I think there's a shortcut to this thing. I think there's a shortcut to that thing.
That's what it is.
But shortcuts lead to long delays, right?
Right, they don't work.
Never.
They don't work.
The problem is they work like a slot machine works. They work long enough to keep you standing there.
Yes.
Pulling the handle.
Yes.
Waiting to see the 3 apples or whatever pops up. And if you look around, you'll see every so often the machine pays off. And it hits you, right? It's like, oh, okay.
Because the society is it has rigged it so the bells and the lights go off.
Yeah.
So you look over there and you're like, well, he just hit it, because all of media, everything, all society goes over to there.
Think of education for a minute like that. We want a formula. You go in a casino, you want the recipe to win, right? You want the inside information, when to hit, when to hold, we just want to know what to do. We need a survival guide. Well, we've told our kids for 50 years what to do. You go to school, you get your degree, and when you come out, you'll be in this different place, a place where people will come to you and say, hey, we've created a job for you, and look what you've done, and now you're qualified. So here's the job, and here's the money, and here's the perks, and it gets into this like endless feedback loop. So we start taking the same basic message and passing it on in the same basic way at the expense of all the other educational opportunities that are out there. And it's not like you guys remember Snidely Whiplash, right? There's not some maniacal evil creature in the corner twirling his mustache, laughing at it. It's really a lot of well-intended people, a lot of parents who want what's good for their kids, a lot of kids who want to do a smart thing, there might be some nefarious elements, but assume for a moment that everybody is well-intended, but just wrong.
Well, I think that's why we give everybody participation trophies.
Right.
Nobody, and political correctness, why we say handy-capable instead of handicapped. That's never made sense to me, because once the generation passes that said handicapped, that meaning goes to handy-capable. So it's the same situation. So they'll have to keep changing the words to mean something different. But we did it because we felt it. You don't want to be mean to anybody. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You give the trophies because you're like, I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me, but let's make the kids feel good.
A lot of press right now about doing away with unpaid internships. It's all over the place, right? And they're probably going to vanish.
Yep.
Right? Right now, it's really not in a company's interest to offer an unpaid internship. You could get sued.
We stopped them.
All kinds of problems. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand the argument. You don't want to see a big bad company taking advantage of the best efforts of a kid who's trying to figure out what to do with his life. But what are the unintended consequences of doing that? What is the behavior you're really rewarding?
Well, let me tell you something. I'll tell you in this company used to have unpaid internships, and we've hired probably more employees from internships than we've hired from any place else, because you get a chance to see them.
Yeah.
And you see them, and you see the ones. We had an intern who's one of our executive producers, and she was going to school, she was working a part-time job, she was doing a radio station broadcast herself, and she never seemed to leave, our broadcast site. When I found out exactly, when everybody was in the company was raving about her and saying, have you seen what she's accomplishing? Look at this woman. And then I found out all of the other things, we hired her that fast. It tells you something about somebody.
I met a kid here last month. I forget, was it Mandy? She was walking. She was walking literally 4 miles to get here.
Yeah.
To basically
45 minutes. She was walking 45 minutes to be able to catch a bus to get here. That's fantastic.
So what do you do as an employer when you realize somebody is doing that?
You do everything you can.
You hire them, right? See, that's the other sort of kind of inconvenient element to the narrative, right? This, in general, a lot of what's going on, people are arguing it's for the good of the group. No. It's for the good of, but
it's not. It's not for the good of the group.
Okay, whether it is or whether it isn't, an opportunity arises for people who aren't hardwired to be in the group. For the individual who stands back and says, okay, so jobs are tight, opportunities are lean, there's this, there's that. All of that really sets the stage for an exceptional person to distinguish themselves in a unique way. So all of a sudden, in a world where this kid picks up a $20 bill out of his own wallet, as you just said, to correct the wrong, once upon a time...
That wasn't exceptional.
That's right. Once upon a time, that was, well, of course, that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Now, we want to meet him. We want to talk to him because we see in him a connection to something that we know is valuable, but we're disconnected from it. So, look, I appreciate being here because I think the idea of slowly coming disconnected from a great many things is a conversation that ought to be happening.
Yeah.
You have it.
Whether you agree or disagree, we should be having the conversation.
Absolutely.
We're becoming a society that doesn't talk to each other, you know? And some of it because, look, I don't have time to sit around if you're going to lie to me. If you're not going to tell me who you really are, what you really believe, I don't want to talk to you. I really don't care. You know what I mean? What a waste of time that is.
Yeah, but look at your show. Your show is set up for people to actually talk and think. Listen to this. It was 3 seconds of silence. Flick around the TV, watch any of the news channels. Find 3 seconds of silence. You can't do it. The camera's going boom, boom, dun, dun, and then, and now, and next. And pretty soon, you don't know what anybody's talking about, but you're sitting there going, crap, man, what's happening?
When I first went to CNN, they told me you cannot stay on the same subject for longer than 45 seconds, and the camera has to move, and the images have to move longer, no more than 45 seconds, because that is the attention span. And I said, good God Almighty, well, not on this program.
Right.
And by the time I left there, we were doing 7-minute monologues. When I got to Fox, they hated the 7-minute monologues, and so I changed that to a full 60, and we were number one. You don't treat people like
You're an
idiots.
anarchist. You're an anarchist.
Yes,
Glenn.
I am.
That's what you are.
Yes, I am.
Look,
Yes, I am.
people are starving for it, you know, and when you do something that is fundamentally different than what everybody else is doing, when you take a reverse commute, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit because it applies to education too, it applies to any business. If you just go in a direction that nobody else is going, people will look. Look, on Dirty Jobs, I used to go into a sewer, right, with 3 cameramen, and I had a camera too, and I remember kneeling next to a guy named Gene Cruz in San Francisco, who had around his neck this wooden container full of mortar, and he was shoring up the grout in between the bricks in the sewer. This is what he did day in and day out. We spent 9 hours with him in the sewer. 4 cameras pointed at him, just him, talking to him, working with him. In the end, what we realized when we looked at the footage, it wasn't so much about whether I was being clever or funny or whether Gene was working hard. It was, we showed up and we paid attention. And look, Access Hollywood, if they get Brad Pitt, it's 1 camera for 3 minutes. We had 4 cameras for 9 hours on a guy in a sewer. I think that's how you have a conversation. You show up, you pay attention, and
may I tell you, that is also the secret for success. I was just having a conversation with somebody right before we went on the air, and I said, you know what the secret to success is right now? 80% of the American people could be successful if they just did this one thing: show up and pay attention. Sit, show up, pay attention. Do what you are supposed to do. Not even any better. Just do what you're supposed to do. And there's an 80% chance of success. You do 5% more than that, you got a corner office. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Can I tell you a 1-minute story?
1 minute.
Head of maybe one of the biggest engineering firms in the world sat down with me a couple of weeks ago to talk about what's going on right now vis-a-vis the skills gap. After Katrina, his firm went down into New Orleans and invested millions and millions of dollars in workforce development. Trained people like they were on steroids, right, for about 12 weeks. Everything they needed: welding, steam fitting, pipe fitting, all the basic skills to rebuild, all the safety protocols. Came time to go to work. The entire program basically collapsed under its own weight because people stopped showing up, and then nobody showed up. Then they spent money to figure out what went wrong. The basic problem: it's too hot. Mm-hmm. It's too hot. So I get it. It's hot outside. But, and you train somebody to weld. By the way, a huge shortage of welders right now. They trained them in a climate-controlled area. Then they went out, and no, it's too hot. I didn't understand. Everything's backwards. First thing you got to do is find out who's willing to work in the heat, who's willing to work in the cold. Work with them. But that's not how we think about it. We get the behavior we encourage, and we ought to be rewarding the behavior we need to see more of.